All engine running. Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us?
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
In my association with Project Blue, they definitely withheld information.
The whole fleet of them, look on the ASA. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Do you believe that our government is in possession of UAPs?
Absolutely.
There are UFO stories, and then there's the story of Chris Bledsoe, one that didn't just change his life, but got the attention of NASA, the CIA, and just about every three-letter agency you can think of. Chris isn't just another guy claiming to have seen lights in the sky. He's the author of UFO of God, a man whose 2007 encounter with an Orb UFO didn't just make headlines. It rewrote the script on what we think we know about UFOs, experiencers, and the forces behind the phenomena. His story is so compelling, so unexplainable, that intelligence agencies didn't try to dismiss it. They showed up at his doorstep to study it. And when the government takes that kind of interest, you know you've got a story worth telling. He's been vetted by NASA, consulted by the CIA, and featured on major TV networks, including the History Channel's Beyond Skinwalker Ranch. But beyond all the credentials and government interests, Chris Bledsoe's experience is something deeply personal, deeply spiritual, and profoundly mysterious. Above all, Chris is a family man, but his journey has led him down a path he never expected, one that continues to raise more questions than answers. And yet, he remains informing the masses about what lies beyond the veil. Today, we're going to beyond the headlines, beyond the documentaries, straight into the details of what really happened in 2007 and onward, how it transformed his health, his beliefs, and his understanding of reality itself. Welcome to the show, Mr. Chris Bledsoe. Thank you so much for joining me today, man.
Thank you for having me, Tyler. It's my honor.
I've been working to get this show, I don't know, off the ground for a while. You're such a busy guy. And then, as luck would have it, we ran into each other and we were in line together at the UFO hearings in November. So we got a chance to meet and it was really fun. And what a humble guy you are, really.
I appreciate that.
So I know we don't have a super lot of time, so I kind of want to dive straight into it. I read UFO of God right when it first came out. I just listened to it again over this past week, preparing for this interview. So I do want to kind of just jump right in. Is that okay?
Sure.
All right. Chris, for those who are maybe a little bit unfamiliar with your story, can you take us back to 2007 and what was happening in your life, before the encounter, and how did it set the stage for what you experienced?
Yes, I'm sorry. My phone keeps ringing. I've turned it down and put it on airplane mode and it still does that. I got to figure out how to hit do not disturb. Yes. In 2007, January the 8th, the 7th of January the 8th, I'm sorry, of 2007. Let me put this in the drawer. It keeps disturbing. Okay, so 18 years ago, this past January 8th. I was suffering greatly from a financial loss and from Crohn's disease. It was all together. The more you get stressed, the worse the Crohn's get, and the more I lost, the worse sick I got, and it was a spiral out of control thing, until where I found myself and having a near-death situation, and then going. That was in 05. And then by late 06, I had recovered enough to try to go back to work a little bit and managing a job, and took a job out of town for 4 months and came home to celebrate coming home with 3 of the guys on the crew and my son fishing on the bank of the Cape Fear River. And, I wasn't into fishing much. I was more into crying out to whoever's up in the heavens to help me, because I was having struggle of feeding my children, 4 children, and I lived in $1 million home or close to it. It is now on the golf course with a pool, and now I'm living in a mobile home, getting free lunches for my kids. That's the drastic difference. Losing $18 million and so quick over building homes. You just couldn't sell them during the World Trade Center. So long story short, that night I walked away from the group and about a quarter or 3/8 of a mile away from them to go look for wildlife. That's the excuse I used. And when I got to the top of that hill, I walked out of the river bottom where they were fishing, and I had to go up, in elevation to get up to the flatland where the field is. And when I got there, there were 2 40-foot orbs sitting across the field, glowing red, like they look like the sun, the size of the sun, and fire swirling around them. And I watched it a minute and got afraid and turned to run. And when I did, a third one above me appeared and shot down next to the other 2. And I knew then they saw me. I knew that they were coming for me at that point. It's a big difference in seeing a ball of light go by, in the car or stand on your back porch, but to see something stop and come to you and let you know I got you on my radar, that's a whole different feeling. And that's what happened in the broad daylight. That third one came to me, and it morphed from a big red ball of glowing fire to a football or an egg or a tic-tac shaped object. And I reported that 45, 50 foot long. And that's what got the government involved, that report.
No.
They were checking that tic-tac.
Right. The tic-tac being a very common shape of UFO reports. So obviously this would ding some sort of radar or ding their radar, because hey, it's being reported again. So I don't, and listen, I have Crohn's. It's not curable. There's no known cure. And I don't think people really realize just how severe your health struggles were at that time, and how bad things really get. Because like you said, stress causes ulcers. Ulcers causes bleeding, right? Internal bleeding. Right. When you have Crohn's, it's a recipe for disaster. So you're going through this really tumultuous time with your family. You don't know where your next meal's coming from after being on top of the world of real estate and, building homes. Are you a religious man at this time?
I was.
So you're
I was all my life, pretty much growing up. I was into the church, and at that point, I wasn't going every day, but my wife has always attended, the Pentecostal Holiness Church, and I did for the most part. But I was crying out to whoever's up there, help me.
What I really don't like, and the kind of fast forwarding here, is how the church has kind of treated you since then. But so you're in the woods, you have this kind of this moment. So I would really like to be brought back into the woods with you if you don't mind. You kind of, you like you said, you veer off. The fishing isn't your thing. You go take a walk in the woods, and you're, you know, pleading for help. As a religious man, when you start seeing orbs come at you, are you thinking, holy shit, God answered my prayers? Or are you thinking,
that wasn't the first thing that hit me. It was more of a fright, because you know, using a rational mind, when you pray, you never expect to see anything, right?
right?
Ever. Well, today when I pray, that's how they come. I go out and I say a prayer, and here they come. That's no secret. Everybody around me knows what I do. But that day, I wasn't expecting. I'm just crying out, you know. And when I come around the curve and see this, it was in the broad daylight. It was about 5:30. It don't get dark till after 6 in January, right? And so, you know, I left the group at 10 after 5, so it had to be about 20 minutes after 5 when I walked up, and it scared me, because really bad when it reacted to me, when it came after me, when I went to run and it appeared immediately. It knew I was going to run, and I felt that connection. So I felt sort of like a animal almost. Oh my God. This thing's going to come get me, not knowing that prayer is what brought it, right? The seeking help. So I didn't have that connection there for a moment. It scared the daylight side of me. But when they brought me back, they took me for 4 hours. And when they brought me back, I wasn't afraid anymore. The weird thing, Tyler, I watched my whole group, my son melt down from shock, and the other 3 guys witnessing this stuff just come to pieces. And I was so calm. I'm like, I want to see it more. I lost my fear for it after I came back.
So what are your group mates? And I say group mates because it's a couple guys and plus your son. That the time you're gone, are they looking for you? Are they preoccupied?
Yeah, there were 3 men. They were all not quite my age, but you know, grown people with children, and subcontractors doing roofing and siding and framing. That's, you know, building houses. And I was the supervisor. I brought them down to do the job, and I just managed them. And my son was with me, but there were 5 of us, those 3 and Chris and I. And Chris Jr. got worried. Where's Dad? He went looking for me. Within 30 minutes after dark, I hadn't come back. He's looking for me. You know, call him, Dad, where are you? And he'd go back to the fire where they were fishing. He done quit fishing. He's got Dad on the brain, right? He's always been clingy to me. And after about an hour, he had convinced the guys to get in the truck. So 2 of them jumped in my pickup and took off looking for me, while Chris went on foot back in the woods, you know, around the river area, still looking, while one guy stayed at the fire. And when I came back 4 hours later, it started all over again. That's when 3 of them landed in front of us across the river.
Okay, so oh God, no pun intended.
Right.
That's a lot to happen. So I mean, during it, did you notice that you were gone for 4 hours, or did it just kind of blink?
I did not. You couldn't make me believe it was more than 20 minutes for a year. I fought it. I fought my son and 3 other men. They're swearing to me, you were gone. We were looking for you. Look at the truck. It was moved. They went through every scenario. Don't you realize it was dark when you got back? There was frost on the ground when you got back. The fire was burned down. With all that, I still couldn't rectify being gone for that long or any time.
Right.
But the memory of seeing the 3rd one come and then walking to the fire was all I had until I did a regression a year and a half later, and I began to see a little bit more of that.
And you, when you say, because you're saying they took you.
Yeah.
Now, most people in the, you know, quote unquote UFO community would say this is an abduction, right?
Right.
Would you classify it like that now?
Nope, not at all. I wasn't abducted. I was crying out for help, and help came.
So
And I want to say this, Tyler, for the audience. So this is something that you guys need to ask for. Get MUFON and some of these reporting agencies to tell you about what the majority of their reports are like. You'll find out 95% of them are positive, spiritual, angelic type visits. Very few is negative. You only hear people talk about the negative stuff. Abduction, they held me against my will. They made me a baby. They took my baby.
right.
Or, anal probes and all this gross stuff that people's come up with. But that's all you hear about. You don't hear about the 95% that's positive.
Right. Okay. So do you believe that there is such, I mean, because in your experience, I mean, you're saying it was a very positive experience for you, and we'll get into what that positive experience was.
Right.
But do you think that there is positive and negative non-human intelligence out there?
Yeah, absolutely. There has to be. There's yin and yang in everything. This world is a diode. It's made based on electricity and positive and negative polarities. And so that's the way the universe works. It's all based on positive energy and negative energy. Your car will not crank without a positive pole and a negative pole on the battery.
Right.
Right. So yeah, where there's good, there's bad. But what's not so much true is you hear people in the church say, "Oh my God, they're the fallen angels. They're the fallen angels. They're coming." Well, I hate to tell them, but if you read the Bible, it tells you plainly that it can't be them because they're locked away in chains until Judgment Day. So there's so much confusion and misinformation out there to what it is we're dealing with is it's really reprehensible, in my opinion.
So do you think with the experience that you had, you went out to the woods with a very kind of like selfless intent. You wanted to help your family. You wanted to be able to provide for your family. You just wanted to be able to feed your kids, and that is a very noble thing. So you're crying out for that, and good comes. Now, other people maybe they don't have the best of intentions when they call these things. Is that where maybe does intent play a
Well, yeah, one thing I want to see, I want to say is let's see the evidence. A lot of people make claims we do this. Well, we never see it. So let's see it. Go out and call it and film yourself calling it in your questions and then show the result. This is much like disclosure. All these guys talking, these military guys, they're great and it helps bring disclosure, but they don't have any proof and they never will have the proof because it's classified, even if they could do it. And so it takes a lot more than just words. We got to have proof. And that's something that I've been able to do, Tyler, for 18 years, and I'm going to keep doing it. And I'm going to do it in a much greater way and with great large groups of people. And that's the way the truth has got to get out to the world. Just saying it,
it's not enough anymore.
No, we're going to prove it.
So, okay. So there has been now, I of course, kind of going through. So you have this experience now.
Yep.
The aftermath I want to talk about. So your experience, or in your book, UFO of God, you describe a profound spiritual transformation after this encounter. How did the experience change your worldview and your understanding of the reality that we live in?
What it did is first off, it messed my brain up into my belief system. what you've been taught all your life about how, this is this way and that way and this way. And then all of a sudden, I have to start questioning everything I know. What just happened to me? If that was an alien, Chris Jenner's saying they were aliens, Dad, that scared me. I'm like, well, why did they come and heal me? Why did they come when I prayed? So we went through years of trying to figure out, his experiences. Now he understands what happened to him had to happen, and it's become a full circle blessing for his life, right?
Right.
But for mine, I struggled for a while trying to figure out, and then I'd go back to over and over. I was crying out to heaven. I had Crohn's disease, inflammatory bowel disease. And you know how bad that is? My whole intestinal tract was swollen this big and inflamed, full of lesions inside. And so you could drink water and it runs right out at the same time you pour it in, or within 30 seconds. That's how sick I was. And so 20 years of that, or 18 years of that. And it was at the worst point then. And I wake up the next day and it's no more nausea, no more, that feeling you get. It's like, oh, you want to throw up all the time and you can't, and the pain, and it was gone. And so I'm telling my son and the people in the church, no, it wasn't the devil. I'm no longer sick. So I've struggled with the community proving myself.
I think
and I struggled with all that. They kept telling me. So I went on my own for 18 years, searching for the truth and interacting with this on a daily basis, and seeing people with blessings happening to them all the time. And I'll not get into that. It's in the book, my book, UFO of God. And so it was a major blessing, Tyler. But to tell you, give you descriptions of how it all works, I can't do that. I'm not that far advanced. I just know, I know why it comes. I know the patterns of why it comes, and it exists with everybody. And you never hear this from the officials, but they always come to people who are having near-death experiences, or who are suffering from a loss of a mother or a child. It's always PTSD, people in the military that have had horrible experiences. Orbs come. They're coming. That rules out alien completely. It rules out something. It brings in something more spiritual. And that's where I'm at. We need to come together and understand it's real, and then stop all that and start trying to figure out what we're dealing with. That's where we need to be.
So for plain and simple, plain and simple. So you do not think that or maybe these things are not coming from some other planet and traveling here.
No, absolutely not. They're around us all the time, and I can show that and do all the time.
You do. Your Instagram is wild.
Well, it's like last night. If you and I walk out, I had people here this weekend, and they were from Washington D.C. And there were 4 of them flew up. 3 of them came here, 4 including the pilot that flew this private airplane. And they were standing beside me, one very influential person. I said, "Look right there," and I pointed to a spot in the sky. I said, "They're right there. They're right there. Watch." And when I pointed at them, so help me, immediately 2 orbs appeared and began to flash and flew right over our head. And she was like, "Oh my God, how did you know that?" I said, "Because I knew they were there. I sensed them." And so, yes, they're always around us. They're watching. They know your thoughts. They know. How did I know they were there?
Right. You have some.
Because I could hear them telepathically. Right?
Oh, man.
And they didn't come from, the
Theta Reticuli,
Andromeda or somewhere. They're right there the whole time. They're always around us, and they're in the air. They live above us.
And they're just so what you're saying is they're choosing when to be seen.
Yep. You don't see
Okay.
them unless they want you to.
Right.
And
You
to
know,
think they're mindless things that you can summon, like, like a mindless creature, I don't buy that at all.
right.
Because it takes a whole lot more from me to get it to come. And if they can do it mindlessly, I'd like to see how that works.
You know what I thought was really, really just overwhelming? It was to watch that episode of Beyond Skinwalker Ranch. And they did a really good job when they hooked you up to the EEG,
Right.
and you are not. I mean, you say it yourself. You're not like a trained meditator, but
Right.
your brain went into like a career meditator, like a monk.
Yeah.
That brainwave, whatever it is, I think it's the delta, or I can't. Don't quote me on that, but it went into like this mode, and then you point, the camera looks up, and what's coming over the horizon but an orb?
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess, if this was 1,000 years ago, Chris, the church would be all over you, calling you a saint. This guy can call in orbs, he can perform miracles. So why did the church turn their back on you?
Because I think that they have been taught forever and a day that anything you can't see is only for the priest to deal with, and it's demonic or dark. So they make everybody believe for the last 2,000 years, if there's a light, it's Satan. He comes as a shining light. It's the fallen angel. So they label everything unseen the devil. That's an easy way to blanket, and control people. You can control the crowds that way. Jesus come along and said, you can, he was teaching that you have a direct connection to the heavens. And that's kind of where I'm at. I have a direct connection there. And I don't know why other than they believe it's demonic,
It's just crazy to me that they, the people who have been with you, the credentials of the people who have stood by your side and said, I mean, this is happening.
Yep.
It's not, he's not making it up. He's not a hoaxer. He's not, this is all, the CIA, Jim Semivan, Bob McGuire, Tim Taylor, NASA, you name it, they've been there.
Yeah.
And they all back you. So I just don't understand, why the church has fallen so behind with this stuff. But
I just think that's the way they believe, and they always have. But they got to change. They've got to open their minds. They're forced to now. And as hard as it's been on me, I get a lot of pushback. I get it from the UFO world. I get it from the church world. So I'm in the middle of something that is a no man's land, right? But that's okay. I like controversy. The more, the better. The more that I get censored off the internet, the more my book sells.
That's a very good point. We talked about this off air.
Bring all the controversy. We'll just keep selling more books.
Well, one of those controversies, and I really, this is something I have been, I've wanted to ask this question to you for so long. The lady in white. Well, I think it's one of the most intriguing aspects of your story and your encounter is with this quote unquote lady in white. Can you tell the audience who is the lady in white? Who is she? And what do you believe that she represents?
Well, I can tell you based on when it happened, I had no clue what just happened. Being a Baptist all my life and then marrying a Pentecostal, we don't know of any saints, or we don't know of any divine feminine, or no Mother Mary, any of that. That's not what's taught in the regular Protestant faith, right? It's just, you don't read about that. So from somebody neutral in this, meeting this woman, it took me a lot of study and a lot of interaction with people in the scholarly world, from Diana Pasulka and others to just about everybody. And what I believe, I can tell you what I feel for sure in my soul, is that when she came at me as an animal, a bull, like, right? I saw it come out of the forest and ran me over, but it was translucent. But the the most powerful part of that was not only seeing this thing go over me, but was the wind. The wind is what hit me so strong. The wind blew me off my feet. The wind knocked me backwards to my back. I fell flat on my back and the leaves on the ground. And as I fall, I see a translucent bull go over top. And I could see stars up through it, which was strange because when I was with Robert Grant in Contact in the Desert last year, he and I were talking with a group of scientists about, and he showed me this image of the bull inside of the king's chamber in the pyramid that he discovered with LiDAR. And it was huge and it had the stars in it, just like what went over my head.
Holy shit, really?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And he was looking for this ruby. His theory is you got to have this ruby that you place between the paws of the Sphinx that would, in 2026, would cause the chamber underneath that Edgar Casey spoke about
Right.
to reveal a new knowledge, right? This is what Robert's talking about. And I'm like, Robert, it's not a ruby. It's the Star of Regulus. And he's like, oh my God, that's the king, the little king, the return of the king.
So
Yeah.
expand on that. I don't know what that is. The star.
Well, study Robert Grant. Robert Grant
Okay.
talks about the 2026 and the Sphinx and all that, and I
Right.
just kind of help fill in his search for the ruby, because the lady gave me an alignment, right?
Mhm.
When there'd be a change in knowledge, there'll be a new knowledge in 2026, and she gave that reference based on an alignment with the Star of Regulus coming up on the horizon in the gaze of the Sphinx just before dawn. It'll be red in color. That's what she said. Well, the Regulus is a blue star, but she says it'll be a red star. It'll come up on the horizon just before daylight, right on the sand in the gaze of the Sphinx. And I had no clue when that is, still dawn, other than some astrology guys ran the charts and said it'll be in the equinox, either spring or fall of 2026. But that was kind of a clue Robert was looking for, that instead of a ruby you got to find, it's that star.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, wow, that blows my mind.
Yeah, it did mine. Especially seeing the bull. But the lady, you ask about the lady, who is she? The more I studied, the more I could never get over the wind, that force of that wind, and the vision of this bull going over me felt like extreme power. It was like the wind was what got me. I mean, and when I rolled over to my stomach to run from this thing, wherever it went, there was no longer a cow. It's a woman. She's glowing about 3 feet off the ground. Her feet's about yay high. I'm on my knees and her feet's about chin high. And she's 4.5 feet tall, maybe, but towering over me, looking down. And she spoke to me, and that's when everything changed. These blessings began to happen. The ability to film her and share, or film the orbs and share it with everybody, happened all at that time. Before then, I could never do it. Okay. But who is she? I think she's the Sophia, or the Holy Spirit, or she's a spirit. And the word spirit defined as the wind. If you Google the word spirit, what is a spirit? It's the wind. Well, what is
Right.
the Holy Spirit? It's the
The
breath of
whole
God.
right. Oh
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. And so she came at me as the wind, blew me over, and then said, I'm going to bless you.
That's
And she did. And she said, I'll never leave you, and I'll let you share us with your friends and on camera, and witnesses and television. And I've been doing it.
and why do you think that there's a reason that now I don't want to call you like I said, I don't want to I don't want to be like, all right, Chris, sounds like you're you know, like a the connector between, you
I'm
know,
just a messenger. Yeah.
right. Maybe that's a better word for it. Is
There's
it?
nothing special about me. I'm just an old country boy, right, from North Carolina. Um, and dealing with something that's not easy to deal with, especially when you got groups of people that want to discredit you and do everything they can do to harm you,
To
and
make you
that's
look like
happened over and over. And it's not just the churches; there's others involved in that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I could think of a couple right now that are in the headlines actually,
Yeah.
dealing with you. But so she tells you, or the lady tells you that you can share this stuff on camera. You can share it with your friends. Is there a reason that? Is there an end game? I guess is
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely an end game.
so. What would
Uh,
that end game be?
that end game is they're bringing disclosure to the world, whether the people of the world want it or not. It's coming. That's the new knowledge that's coming. That's what she told me, and there was no stopping it. So they're going to appear in mass numbers, and the more that the world gets in divisiveness, where they're looking at war against Ukraine or Russia or any country,
Right.
escalating like it is, and you know the deception that's happening, lies and all kinds of misinformation going about in the news and everywhere. The phenomenon doesn't like that. Remember, they care about our mother's dying. They care about you from a near death. These are the orbs. I'm not talking about aliens from some faraway place. There may be those too, but that's not in my swim lane. I don't know anything about that. I'm the orb guy, basically.
No, yeah, you popularized the phrase. Your story brought that phrase to the community.
Right.
And
I did.
which
2000.
yeah,
Yeah.
people forget
2007.
that orb was not a commonplace. It wasn't like a term that was used with UFOs until your story, which people often tend to forget. So
Yeah. One thing I did too. I've maintained this 15 plus years that these orbs mimic everything. They mimic
including up to
They mimic flying saucers, they mimic drones, they mimic complex aircraft, they mimic helicopters. I know for sure I've seen them do it, and I've worked with people that have seen it and witnessed it and have been traumatized from there.
do,
You know,
do you
wanting.
think do you think what happened in New Jersey? I mean, you know, Trump did the first press secretary thing yesterday, and it came out that the FAA had known about the drones in New Jersey, or you know, whatever.
They had to have known.
Right. But do
They
you
know.
think there was anything else going on?
Well, the orbs, I think the drones are watching the orbs. The orbs are coming. They're coming out of the ocean. It's not drones coming out of the ocean, it's the
No.
orbs. Not saying the government doesn't have one they can throw out there and bring it out of the water, but 50 of them, these are orbs coming out. They're coming in. They're on heightened sense of alert. And so the government's sending these drones up and kind of muddying the water there a little bit, I think. Because
Mhm.
for one, listen, I'm a commercial pilot.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
also
right.
I'm also a drone pilot, and I also know how the rules in the FAA work, and as far as drones work. Go buy you a new DJI drone, take it out there by New Jersey over town, and try to take it off at night and see what happens. For one, it won't let you.
Nope.
The FAA can control the drone and say, no, you're not taking off, and stop it. And also, why would you want to fly it at night? Because you're blind to start with. All you could do is go straight up and tell it to come down and land. because you
There's no
can't see out. You can't see at night.
right. They're not made for. They're in their current form. They are not made for nighttime flying.
Well,
And
there are, but they're military and they're like the fire department has thermal drones. They can see at night. They have night vision drones, but the
right.
average ones me and you buy, the
They
recreational drones, they work off of goggles. You're completely blind at night, or if you buy the DJI versions, what you're going to see at night is basically nothing. And they're
right.
just going to go up and hover a little piece and come down, and they're restricted. So there's something else going on there. They're not telling us.
If you try to fly over a military base, it will hit that wall and basically return to
Stop.
sender or
Yeah.
drop right on the ground.
Absolutely. It'll land right
So-
back in your face. Even
so-
in state parks, national parks, like national parks, you can't fly in them. They won't even take off
Right.
unless
So
you hack the drone, and then they can find you.
and that yes, and that so that's what I was trying to tell people while it was happening is, guys, these things that are incurring over military bases, those are not hobby drones.
No, hobby drones are this big.
Yeah.
$4,000 drone is like the size of a plate, right?
Yeah.
An Agra drone, which is DJI, they're about $40,000. They're probably big as the hood of your car. These things are flying around big as trucks and Volkswagens, and they're ours, straight up ours.
Have you ever felt like you were being, monitored or tested because of your experience?
Yeah, all the time.
All the time?
All the time.
Like to what degree?
There's somebody, my phone was ringing there when I had to put it up, right?
Yeah, that's right.
There's somebody in the government calling me then. I'm in touch with people all the time. And so, yeah, they want to know what's happening.
Well, I noticed because when we were in DC together, there are so many people that walked by you. Take a second look, take a third look, take a fourth look, make sure it's really you, and then come up and say, I just want to introduce myself. So I thought that was very kind of odd, but it was interesting to see because it kind of brought your story to life for me because the amount of heavy hitters that were in that line that day, there was a lot. So when people like representatives of NASA start showing up at your door, because I don't know if for a while maybe you thought, am I going crazy? This experience I had was really, really, just out there. You're trying to come to terms with it. And then the government starts coming knocking. Jim Semivan, Tim Taylor. Did that give you a sense of validation or trepidation?
Well, it sure did. It definitely gave me validation. And the sad thing is I could not share it publicly. If I wanted to share it, I was told not to. So I was in the middle of living two worlds, getting criticized by church and friends and family and strangers alike, while I'm over here working with special people that could easily say, you guys are wrong. But so I many years there living this double life and letting like a turtle, letting all the criticism roll off my back.
That's a good way to go about it, especially in this community. It can be kind of,
it's awful. It's awful. Dog eat dog. I never in my life seen the
disconnect between like the UFO Twitter world and reality is it's so bad. It honestly,
it's just awful people that have nothing better than do than to get on the news or the radio or the Twitter or one of those and call you every name in the book, and they hide behind fake names.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Do you think that? Okay, so we look around at these quote unquote, whistleblowers. Do you think that there is a possibility the government or shadow government. Let's call it the deep state, because 99.9% of the government, they don't know. They go in,
Right.
they clock in, they clock out, they want their pension. That's it.
Right.
But the quote unquote secret keepers, they've clearly taken an interest in not just your story, but many others. Do you think that there is some sort of controlled disclosure happening?
Absolutely, 100%, without a doubt.
Can you expand?
No, because I don't want, listen, I have enough trouble with these people to start with.
That's true.
I get censored more than anyone. And
Yeah.
everybody's like, wondering, is there censorship happening? Absolutely. And it happens to me all the time. And I'm not going to expand on that. But I will say there are 4 or 5 podcasts this year that hadn't made the light of day that I've spent half the year doing.
Right.
And so that's why I really don't want to get involved with that. Let them roll out what they want and how they're going to do it, and we'll see where it ends up. But it's going to take proof. Just words don't do it.
Right. That's what I think. That's why I think what you do is much more commendable than a lot of people in the community. You're posting evidence almost daily.
Yep.
Daily. And then
I can do it every day for the next 5 years. I've got that much data.
Right.
It's like my new camera. I've only put a half a dozen videos up, but I've got nearly 700 with it since June.
These orbs, they are so I hate to how do they range in size? Are they made of some sort of material? I mean, how close have you gotten to one of these things aside from seeing them in the sky, like in your personal?
Well, I've got a video I'm going to post later today of one in the woods right next to me. Actually 2 or 3 in there, but one you can see clearly about head high off the ground flying through the forest in high definition. But they come, it's according who's here. If I bring a bunch of strangers in, like we're in Wilmington, right? We had 200 people on the beach in Wrightsville Beach in October.
Right.
And about 130 orbs showed up. Close to 200 people standing there on the beach. And they begin with, they kind of test everyone. They're way up there. And all of a sudden they get lower and lower and lower until we had 4 that come out of a ball of light with wings, flew right over top of everybody's head.
With wings?
Glowing with wings, yes. What? And we filmed it. And in front of 200 people. And they wasn't that high. They were probably 300, 200, 300 feet up. So, but often here, if it's my family or it's people that's been here more than one time, they tend to get closer because they know what they don't want to mess with your free will. So sometimes they getting really close can scare a person. You can hear many people that's been here give testimony, like a young friend of mine, Molly Stromberg and Zaz. Molly has a Beyond the Border podcast. Listen to her. She didn't sleep all night. Had an orb from in front of us, 25 feet away, appear about the size of a beach ball, gold, and then shot straight up out of sight. It was this happens all the time. Sometimes they'll fly right over your head and sit here like a little flame and burn.
I gotta come down there and see this. We'll
get you here. We'll have to get you here.
What really took me with your case is the Crohn's part. I mean, so have you been to the doctor and have they told you it's just gone?
Yep. I went to Chapel Hill, Duke University, Chapel Hill, actually Chapel Hill. Those are the 2 famous hospitals in North Carolina, right? But Chapel Hill, University of Chapel Hill did a complete, my rheumatologist, I developed rheumatoid after my experience in 2009. I was diagnosed with rheumatoid, which is an autoimmune disease. Well, my doctor immediately thought, it had to come back. Gary Nolan even said, you just got a reprieve. They didn't tell you it came back as rheumatoid. So I my doctor wrote me a referral to Chapel Hill.
Mm-hmm.
We went up and did a complete screening and found out there are no markers in the Crohn's at all, and that the rheumatoid was completely a different disease on its own.
I don't, people like, just for anyone listening, there is no cure for Crohn's.
Right.
None.
Nor RA. And
Yeah,
I was in a
nor.
wheelchair in 2019 from RA. I mean, I was that sick. And then the
So
lady came again at Easter of 2019, and suddenly I'm in remission. I do what I want to do now.
I saw you stand in line for 8 hours that day.
Yeah.
You weren't in a wheelchair.
I was in 2019 on a
That-
cane for years, and then by 2019, if I went anywhere like a shopping or to the airport, I was in a wheelchair. I could walk to the bathroom with a cane, but that was it. But after that Easter experience, I'm in remission, have been since.
Now, Easter, Easter has been brought up in your story as like a recurring visitation day,
Yeah.
if you will. Are they taking you, or is it you going to the place of where it first happened? And
No, I think that the spring equinox has got a big impact on the phenomenon. However, why? I don't know why, but every year at Easter, here comes the phenomena in a huge way. And I mean, usually it's more ground level and flying around our heads and over 10 or 12 people at a time. I mean, I've had rock stars here where the orbs are hovering in the trees and right over our heads in front of 14 people. Like, oh my God. And it's appearing around all of us.
my Lord.
This is during April, usually when that happens. It kind of resides back. And then certain guests come here during this year. It'll show back up that way. But
Well, maybe I'll have to. Maybe we could talk off air about that.
yeah, I'll
Coming
get you
down.
here.
Because I'll come tomorrow, but I'd rather come, of course, but and see that, because I had an experience when my mother died. It's funny that you bring up, how when we are in these moments of vulnerability, I mean, and Chris, I can't bullshit you, man. I looked at my mother. She was on her deathbed, literally, and her death date is 4/3/2/1. It was the day before Easter 2021, which is why I've connected with you so much. And you just don't know, because I haven't been able to tell you, right? From the Crohn's to the Easter. But Chris, I looked at her, she was alive, right? Or she was heavily medicated, but she was alive. And when you look at someone, they're there, right?
Yeah.
I remember my phone, ironically, kind of like what you just had, it started like buzzing my leg, and clearly someone was calling me. But I made this like kind of like split second decision where I looked at my leg and I was like, no, none of it's worth it. Nobody who's calling is worth my time right now. So, but in that split second of looking down and looking back up, maybe a millisecond, this white orb not bounces, but crosses my field of vision and then goes out the window and up.
That was your mother's spirit.
Chris, if you didn't take the goddamn words out of my mouth, sorry for using the Lord's name.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
Dude, I'm pretty sure. And
so now how much more does that make these orbs around us more real to you, right? That's who's there when your mom passed over. That's who was there waiting for her. That's who they are. They're around us.
That makes me feel comforted to know. I can't really explain why.
Well, you should. You had a special gift. You got to see it.
Yeah, I mean, I was her firstborn. We had a real I'm 5 years sober now. She watched me struggle struggle, not with just the Crohn's. I was diagnosed at 14 years old, which is an oddity. Usually people are diagnosed in their 20s or later.
Right.
And not to make this about me, but all she wanted to do was paint eggs for Easter, right? In those last couple of days. So I brought the kit that day. I brought it all. And we didn't get to do it, unfortunately. But she showed me something that set me on this path. Because that was my moment of conversion, if you will. From that day, I was like, nothing matters anymore, aside from finding more out about this. So that's why I'm here talking to you.
It's beautiful, beautiful.
So
you got to experience something that is life-changing, that opened a door that everybody only wished they could see into.
Yeah.
And you're there. You know it's real. And when you see that, you can never go back. You can't never say it didn't happen. And it changes. It awakens us. And that's what this whole new knowledge is about. You're already there. Now you want to know what she's dealing with on the other side, right?
I do.
And that's what I'm presenting here. In my opinion, that's what these things are.
So
that's just my opinion, and I couldn't prove it, but I feel certain. Why else would they come when we're struggling?
You need it the most?
Yeah.
Right? Because and that's so it's the lady in white for you. I mean, would you say, I guess, would you say that she is some sort of authority figure?
Yeah.
And,
like the Holy Spirit, like
well, you said
God in let's just, in my opinion, if God was to come and he came with a lightning bolt and thunder flying out of his eyes and hands, me and you would fall over dead like the goats. You know, a goat can get frightened and fall over still. Well, there's you can get scared to death, I promise you. It's happened to me with a snake before. I hit the ground with a snake that tried to bite me once. And when I hit the ground, I couldn't even move. I was paralyzed. I was trying to move and nothing would work, right? But if God was to come as your mother or a beautiful lady to speak to you, you would not probably fall over and die. You would be like me. When I saw it, it was like, oh my God, what is this, an angel? What am I looking at? And the way she came, the wind, the spirit, it was a spirit blessing me and blessing many other people. If you read my book, you'll hear about some of the blessings in there for people who have been sick, or not just physically sick, but emotionally distraught or lost from all kinds of things. And so there's a lot of blessings that this book has people have written me about, saying they've been blessed by it. So
right.
What else?
I want to bring up one experience, and that was with your dog.
Right.
Can you tell us the story of what happened with your dog and what you did? Because I am not going to lie. When I first heard you tell that story, it was very early on. I was like, what? That can't be. It can't be. Of course, I've conditioned and now I've just seen things that, I mean, they totally changed my reference for the frame of mind. But can you tell this story? Because I find it to be one of the most remarkable.
Yeah. I'm going to find you something here.
All right.
This a photo of this dog, so your audience can see it.
Yeah, and if you send it to me,
this is Nellie. See the rag on her neck and the blood.
What the? Oh
That's
my!
Nellie. She's a black Labrador. This is Grant Cameron, the Canadian ufologist.
Yep, we've had him on.
That's his britches, his pants leg, where the dog blood's right on his leg. And there's the blood trail going up the steps and in the back of the house. You can see the blood there.
Yeah.
So the story goes, Grant and I were standing out by this tree. This is the famous burning tree. You see, it's burnt
Yep.
out in the middle, but still blooming, right?
Right.
Well, Grant drove from Canada he was heading to Miami to do a UFO show and called me. We'd recently met the year before, and I wanted to come visit, see your place, see the tree and all that. And so he stopped by and on his way to Florida, stayed a couple days and went to Florida and called me on his way back and said, can we visit another night? So I just told him to stop over and stay with us instead of a hotel, right? So when he comes back, he pulls into the yard. First thing he wants to do is go look at the burning tree. He didn't get pictures of it when he was there the week before. So we walk out to the burning tree, and here's Nellie, my black lab, is following us everywhere we go. And she'd lay on the ground, and listen to us talk. And I guess we spend 20 minutes out there. When we get back to the house, all my kids are on the back patio, some of their friends. And Grant and I stopped where they were, and I said, you want the kids to get your bags? You can stay tonight with us. And he said, yeah. Well, Nellie was laying on the ground beside me, and Grant was between me and the back door. I'm facing the house. He's between me and the back door, about 20 feet from the door. And when I'm asking him that, we agreed. He turned and started towards the house. I see Nellie get up and run by to cut us off. She's going to go in the back door first, like dogs will do. They want to be in the door. And I saw blood spraying out of her neck and go across the patio. And I ran and tackled her and drug her outside and laid her on the ground and had my hand over her neck. And there was a hole the size of I'd say it was 1.5 inches long. And you could see down in 1 inch deep in her neck, and blood was just pouring out of there. And I put my hand on her neck right here and holding it. And I shouted for somebody to get me a rag. All I could think of is I got to put compression on it.
Right.
And so Chris Jr. ran in and got a washcloth. That's what you saw there. And I moved it, and everybody saw this big gaping hole, and I'm holding the rag on her neck. And I come to the realization she was going to die because we're 30 minutes from the nearest vet, 25. And I got to get her in a car and her bleed to death before we get there. And so I knew she was dead. And I just looked up at the heaven and I said, what do I do? Please help. And that's what I said. And I said it out of full earnesty and I meant it. And immediately I felt her go limp. She just kind of quit moving, struggling. And I lifted my hand up and she didn't even wiggle. She laid there with the rag on her neck. And everybody pulled near. Grant took the pictures. When I removed that rag, there was no hole in her neck. It was completely gone. And she stood up and waggled her tail, and walked away. And there were a bunch of witnesses to that.
I mean, what?
This is what the lady did.
So
this
you
is
think
why
that? Do you think
it
that
all
she was
came through
working
her?
through you?
It came from her, yeah. So ever since she left, that's been one of the things that I've been studied about and had interest from CIA and different ones. It's in the book how I got into that.
Yeah,
that's another. That just elevated it even more, right? When that happened.
I mean, that brings us. I mean, that doesn't bring it to a whole new level. It brings it to a whole new reality.
Yeah, different.
Right. This is. I mean, we're talking this dog. I hate to talk like this, but this dog, for lack of a better term, was dead on the scene.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You
a
don't
hole this big in her neck and that deep and blood right across her jugular vein or
right. There's
main vein.
Like you said, by the time you get the dog in the car, you get out there. I mean, there's too much blood loss in that area. Yeah. There's too much blood coming through for a dog to survive a 20-minute ride to the hospital. There's no way a dog survives.
Right.
When the dog went limp, did you think, okay, she just passed? or
No, I knew.
Something crazy was going on?
Yeah, yeah. I
Did you
knew
feel it?
something. The way she reacted, she just went limp instead of a struggle.
Mm.
Yeah, for life. All of a sudden, she just went limp, and I thought it shocked me, and so I raised my hand up, and and she just laid there. And then when I picked the cloth up like that, there was no hole, and she just everybody's like, "Oh my God!" and just stood up and walked away, like nothing happened.
God, my God. I mean,
There
does
were
that,
witnesses too. You heard
yeah.
Grant tell the story. He took pictures.
So, so
So
what?
after that, Tyler, in 3 or 4 weeks, 6 weeks, I was in Washington D.C. because word got around about that, and that's how that happened. And
So
there's a lot more in the book about that trip to D.C. and on the
what,
4th of July.
right, and what transpired. And I highly recommend that everybody go read UFO of God. It is one of the best books that I've ever read, not just in the UFO realm, but there's something to your words, Chris. And I think 20, 30, 40 years from now, people are going to look back, and I know you say, oh, I'm just a nobody from the Midwest. Sorry, I just said
North Carolina.
from North Carolina. I said Midwest.
Yeah.
But I don't think that you are. I think that you were chosen for how humble you are. I've been in your presence, man. There is something about you that's different. It is different.
I
And
appreciate that.
it's different in a way that is special, because I felt my spirit raised when you are around. Like, it was something about you that's electric. And it doesn't surprise me that these 3-letter agencies like CIA, DIA, Department of Energy probably has been to your house.
Oh, I'm familiar with this.
Yeah, because that's where I think the secrets are really kept, is the
I
Department of
actually
Energy.
have friends that are on the board there. How about that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's
At a couple of different, like Oak Ridge National Laboratories, that might be one of them.
right. And those Sandia, a lot of those places are targets. The UFO community thinks that there's stuff going on there that is beyond what they tell us. And
Sure of that.
and it sounds like, with the experiences that you've had, that you've personally have a level of confirmation that not a lot of people do. And what's that? Does that make you feel like different?
Well, no, it just there's no end to the burden here that I deal with, and it's every day. It makes me feel more committed to do what it is I got to do, and that's to share a truth, no matter what. That is a beautiful thing that a lot of people don't want it to be out that way. They'd rather it be told negative. That way they can control it.
Right.
The people, they're afraid that if we get that if we mess with it, they may not be able to control that. So, see what I'm saying? So
Right. So they lose it. They lose the control.
yeah.
And is I get, what, I'll pass
It's
on
the
that.
wrong approach for them to take, though, completely.
Yeah, and that's what I was
It'll
going to
backfire 1,000% because the lady's not going to let it happen. This is one thing I've been told. They're going to bring the truth to the world, and no matter what anybody wants, it's going to happen. There's no stopping it. AI and the computers and the telephone and the orbs are coming when they want to come. There's no amount of military or government or institution that can stop it. And that's what we're in for, an increase in activity. greatly.
And when this event happens, what would be what would the day after look like? What do you think?
Well, I don't think there's an event. I think it's a everyday. It's like you are already awakened. Disclosure is a big mistake. Everybody's wanting disclosure. Disclose what? Just the truth that is real. Well, they told us that,
Right.
but it's up to us to believe that.
Right.
And you believe it 1000%. You know it because you've seen it. So you're already disclosed. It's my grandma that lives in, this next door, or, some little Sally down the street that's not convinced, and will never be based on words. It's going to take a whole lot more. But disclosure is not going to be an announcement. It can't be. It's going to be vetted, processed with materials, and scientists all agreeing on it.
So,
or is it an individual thing that we learn inside? And that's the real disclosure, is knowing the truth beyond a doubt.
Right. And do you think that that there's some part of an ancient civilization, or maybe even like the pre-dynastic Egypt, do you think that there was some sort of advancement that we don't know of, that we're not aware of,
Yeah.
that connected them to the divine?
Just in my thoughts, I think the world has been started and restarted many times. The earth. I mean, look at the geological record.
Right.
There's just so much life buried right on down deep in the ground. Where did it all come from? The seashells up on top of, clams on top of the Himalayas, right?
Right.
So we can't possibly think we're the first ones here. In fact, there were bugs that were 3 feet wide, dragonflies that used to fly around, and giant people, and it was a whole different world. Dinosaurs, what happened to all of them? So
Right.
I think whoever built the pyramids had a whole lot more knowledge than we give them credit for. And machinery and technology, they try to tell us they built that thing with pounding a rock against another rock.
There's
We all
no
smarter than that.
Come
I was down in Florida at a friend of mine's, Matt Beals, a couple weeks ago, and he has the largest collection of pots from Egypt, like the ones you see that are perfect. He has
Right.
100 of them. He's collected them for years.
So like the ceramic pots, or the clay
They're
pots?
made out of granite, and they're in ancient Egypt pots. There's granite stone pots. He has about 100 of them. Yeah, he's bought them online in auctions, and I mean, it's the real thing you see, like on Uncharted X on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And to look at those things, to see, and I turn wood. I have a wood turning jet machine here. I make bowls, I make pots, I make that kind of thing. What I saw he had, there's no amount of beating rocks on rocks that could create such a perfect shape and hollowed out stone vessel without a machine. Somebody did it with a machine 2,000 or 3,000 years ago. I don't care what anybody says. There is nobody on this planet that can prove that those pots were not made on a machine.
Right. And being in that world of construction, that granite is very, very,
absolutely,
it's strong, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason that it's used.
Well, look at these vases. They're hollowed out inside, and the sidewalls are only an 1/8 inch thick.
Right. The precision is
get in, and they're perfectly smooth inside and out. So somebody did it with a machine.
And then, and that, it really beats me, is that the entire world, there's not a continent that there is not a pyramid on.
Right.
I guess we could say that we don't know about Antarctica, but I'm gonna press my luck here and say that
Say they're there.
they're there too.
Yeah, I'm sure they are.
And it seems that there was this knowledge that was not centered to one area. It was not centered to one people,
Right.
but it was knowledge that was worldwide. They built these amazing.
There's a lot they're hiding and they don't want to tell us about. You know, it's
Right.
like I was watching the ancient Egyptians. A lot of the mummies have red hair, right? Red hair. And all of them had traces of cocaine in them. Well, that only comes from South America, right?
Right.
And back in them days, they said it wasn't possible that they traveled over there. They couldn't have done it. Well, they were doing it long before that.
Right.
They had trade, and I bet the Americas was there were people coming here long before Christopher Columbus. They knew about this place way before then, I think.
I think there's no doubt, and you know, I know I'm not going to keep you too much longer. You've got a busy day, but that's what bothers me too, is that archaeologists and mainstream scientists and all these people who you know, they look at religion and science as polar opposites. Like they can't possibly, you know, you can't read the Bible and be a scientist and be taken seriously if you think
that's where this new knowledge is going to come. They're going to have to decide they're not atheists any longer. This is where the new knowledge comes in. You got to, you know, atheism and science has got to have a truce.
Right. And that's what
go away, atheists. There's no room for that anymore.
No, it's not, because, and I've said this for a long, long, long time. Take all the religious books, right? All the religions in the world, step back, right? Take a step back and look around. We all have a little piece of the puzzle, right? It's and you know, talk about stories of old. You know, I always talk about this, the Tower of Babel, right? It really resonates with me because together, united, the human race, there is nothing that we can't do.
Right.
But when we're factionalized, when we're divided and pitted against each other, that is when we're the weakest. And that's what we are right now.
That's when the earth reacts negatively against us too.
There's no harmony.
The harmonies, the frequencies are off. Yeah.
Right. We're the only thing, we're the only life on this planet that absolutely takes way more than we give back to the planet.
Right. Exactly.
And it's only a matter of time till God decides to wind up and throw a stone, right?
I think that's happening now.
It scares me.
I think it's happening now. I mean, look, it's just going to get more interesting this year, I had to say.
I think a lot of people, Chris, are going to be coming back and being like, I'm sorry, man. You know, I didn't, and I hope that happens. I really do.
Yeah.
You're just such a humble guy, man. And if there's one thing in this world that you want people to understand about your experience, what would it be?
That my experience has been an 18-year journey of the most beautiful experience with the heavens, but the worst experience with people, naysayers, church, and some government folks, not all. But it's the people that has given me a hard time. It was not the phenomena. It hadn't eaten me yet. It's healed me. I've seen many people healed from it, from all sorts of things, from cancers to depressions. And so the one thing I want to say is believe in the evidence, follow the evidence. Follow the evidence, not just words. I seen, I got, I built, I made. I never giving you any video, any evidence. So pay attention, follow the evidence is all I can say, and not believe everything that's said. It's important to make your own decisions and not believe just what somebody tells you. And that includes me. All I want to do is just show you what I think, share the data that I get at night. And if you're here and I ask the Holy Spirit, if you would share your presence, and all of a sudden orbs start coming about, that's the next step that I'm going to start sharing.
That's what I want to see.
I haven't done that yet, but that's coming. And then we'll see. I mean, it's going to come down to, like those showdown in Elijah days, I think, when this is what we're looking at.
Well, I absolutely can't wait for you to go, kind of balls to the wall with this and be like, you know what, I'm done with you people telling me I'm a this and that. Let's start showing you really what's going on. Right. So what's next for Chris Bledsoe? With the success of UFO of God, would there, sequel, would that be in the works or?
Yeah, well, there's a lot happening that I definitely don't want to speak about at the moment. But it's just going to be a really big deal that I think will surprise a lot of people. And then there's the expedition that we're planning, which is another really big deal, but we're going to take it to the road and start going out in different locations and filming this stuff and sharing it on a new YouTube channel that's soon to be created. And so there's a lot of interesting things happening, but we're going to maybe go out to, say we end up in Utah, and we might have 100 people show up from that area, or we may end up in New York and have, I don't know what we're going to do.
Right. You name the place and people will be there.
Oh, I know they will.
Because
rather than try to have 5,000 at one event and have, the biggest mess, even over 100 people, it gets hard because you got to have bathrooms. And
yeah.
So I want to keep it small, but
small
share
and intimate, but
yeah.
do less more often.
And have the people there to get their reaction, to let them see and experience, because you can't, first-hand experience is more important than me telling it, right? So
absolutely. And this will be the final question for you, and it's not even really a question. What'd you think of the News Nation special with the whistleblower Jake Barber? They showed a video of I don't even know what to call it, the egg UFO. Yeah, did you see it? And
yeah, I saw it.
Did it?
I don't know what it was. I'll have to go off of what they're saying, right? They're telling us that.
Right.
I did report a 45-foot egg or football, but what it looked to me like, and to describe what these orbs look like in their natural form on the cover of my book, if you see right here,
yes,
is an orb.
She's holding it.
She's holding an orb with 3 dots inside. Well, that orb is translucent, and if you look at it under the high definition, if you get a high definition image and you pull it up, look at it close, there are little water bubbles inside. So these orbs remind me of raindrops. They can come together and it'd be totally round, size of a bowling ball, and go bloop, and you can watch them. They kind of jiggle like a raindrop. And so when these red orbs come out of the sky and sat down on the ground, or it was 5 foot off the ground, it kind of looked to me like it flattened out, humped up in the middle, but it was a ball to begin with. But this luminous 40-foot glowing orb of water looked like it kind of squished down a bit. So, but they can mimic a metal disc. They can mimic a wooden flying boat like the Mayflower with glowing cells. There's many reports of that in the 1800s, 1700s.
Oh yeah, ghost ships,
flying ships, ghost ships. Yeah, they mimic everything. They can mimic metal balls, black balls you see in the daytime flying about. It'll be an orb. I've watched them do it. Go from a translucent ball of water like that to instantly it turned black and just be a
Black as
black
night in
ball.
the sky, right?
Right? Instantly.
What the? That, I mean, that leads us down a whole different path. But
Yeah, that's crazy. What?
the guy Jake Barber, and I don't know. I don't want to ask you what you think about him, but he did talk about an orb. He's flying the helicopter, and an orb comes through it. And what did you think of that statement particularly?
I've had them fly through me many times.
Did it give you that same feeling of?
They give me that whether I'm flying through them or not. I feel it when they're
Just
way up in the
there.
air.
Yeah.
That's my connection to them. That godlike holiness, beautiful feeling. And
Wow.
that's where I put myself in that state. When I sense them, they're attracted. But they're not like mindless things. They're very powerful beings that could destroy this planet if they wanted to. And you can't just summon them like a mindless dog,
Right.
I have to humble myself and ask in earnest to bless me with your presence. And when I do that, poof, here they come.
Right.
Yes.
That's beautiful, man. And
Yeah.
I really cannot wait to see some of that stuff that you're putting out. And when you start going out and showing groups of people, I am going to be on that. I'll be in the first place you do it. So, and I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show today. So UFO of God, available anywhere books are sold. I'll put the link in the description below. You are also on Twitter or X, whatever it's called, as well as Facebook, and people can follow.
And Instagram is where I post most of the
That's
videos.
Right.
But Amazon is you can buy these books on Amazon, Spotify, and so on. And audio, we have a Spanish version and an Italian version. And the audios on those will be available by the first week of February. We just now translated them. So the books are there. You can buy a Spanish book or an Italian book, but we've got
the audio book version, right?
Yeah, that's coming.
That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that, because I think, like you said, this isn't just the United States phenomenon, right? This is worldwide. So,
Right.
The further your book gets, and the more people that read it, when that day comes that you're talking about, they'll know where they heard it first, Chris. They will.
Yeah.
So again, from everyone here at Total Disclosure, I just want to say thank you for what you're doing in the community, for putting your neck out there the way you do, and just being a humble person. So thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it, and it was my honor to be on your show today. I have avoided you for quite a while, and a whole lot of others. But it was Christmas, and we were traveling. We were everywhere, right? I would just come back from Florida, and I was out in the Midwest. So,
people don't realize, like, if you go through my Facebook messages with Chris, it's just every other week I'm like, all right, so what about this day? And I always know you're a very busy person. You were filming for this, and then it was the holidays, and I just like to schedule people out. And trust me, I'm just a very persistent person.
You caught me at the right time, because I just come back from Florida, and it starts over next month. We're off again to everywhere.
Right. So I would really love to stay in touch with you. I'd really love to come out and visit and see this more for what it is, and
Let's do it.
And get that word out there, because I think more people need to realize and wake up. I really think they do, because there's the fighting it's so primitive. It's so, it's destructive. It's helping nobody. And
it's infighting is I stay out of it.
Yeah.
that sometimes they try to drag me in of it, and I just block the people and go on. I don't have time for that, you know.
No, absolutely not. So again, for everything you do, tell you the family as well. Your son has that amazing podcast, Bledsoe Said So, which I think you appeared on last week or this week.
Yeah, last week.
Yeah, that was an amazing episode. Your
Thank you.
your son is really talented. He's another person I'd love to talk to in the future. So maybe we can try to set that up.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you so
can
much.
introduce you whenever you're ready. So,
All right, brother. Well,
all right.
cheers to this and to many more.
Thank you, my friend.
All right.
I appreciate you.